Every sports fan thinks that they can predict who's going to win the championship of their favorite league. In their defense though, the lack of parity in certain sports can definitely be felt. In the last 10 years of baseball and basketball, the formula seems pretty simple. Before the season even starts, there's 3 to 4 teams that are favored to win it all. And in the end, one of them wins. That is, with the exception of these 2 very improbable instances. These 2 underdog stories inspired sports fans everywhere to expect the unexpected. This is how the 2011 Mavericks and the 2019 Nationals told very similar stories of why you should never give up, even when the odds are stacked against you. In most sports, the teams can be separated into 3 different categories. Teams that have absolutely no shot, teams that are solid but have very little chance of winning anything significant, and serious title contenders. The 2011 Mavs and the 2019 Nats probably fit under that second category. Both had solid players like Dirk Nowitzki and Anthony Rendon, but teams like the Dodgers, Yankees, Heat, and Lakers all had bona fide Hall of Famers that made them the clear favorites. The 2 Black Horse champions would have different paths to the playoffs, but both would have moments in the regular season of very real doubt. For the Nationals, they get off to the worst start they could possibly ask for. Truth be told, many had hopes for the Harperless Nationals to win their division. Instead, they start the season 19-31, with most people thinking that their playoff hopes are dead in the water.
It's over. Go home.
Starting in June though, everything changed. They go 33-18 in June and July, going over 2 months without dropping more than 2 games in a row, all due to a handful of players stepping up. After an awful April and May, Scherzer doesn't record a loss until September 13th, and in the midst of his comeback, he injures his face in a both concerning yet kind of hilarious batting practice incident that leaves him with a swollen eye and a broken nose. The next day, he pitches 7 shutout innings on the way to a Nats win. Talk about toughness. In June, another big change makes a big difference. I can't say that's going to be music to your ears though.
Exactly what they need here. The baby shark is going to pinch hit.
That really is amazing, is it not?
In an attempt to get out of a batting slump, Gerardo Parra changed his walk-up song to Baby Shark, one of his daughter's favorite tunes at the time. More ridiculous than the song choice was the fact that it actually worked. In fact, it would do more than get him out of a slump. The song became the de facto rally song for the national season, providing positive energy to a team that started off in such a negative way. The Mavericks, on the other hand, had a very good start to their season. Their eventual 3rd seed would signify that they were a solid team. But with teams like the 2014 Hawks and the 2017 Raptors getting the number 1 seed in the past, it just means very little. The big problem for the Mavs was the lack of all-stars. I mean, Dirk was still effective, but at the tail end of his career, with no big number 2 guy in sight, no one took this team very seriously.
I'm waiting, old man.
Their lack of star power would show itself in January, where they would go 8-8, dropping games to teams like the Bucks, Magic, and Pistons. This was mostly due to Caron Butler rupturing his patellar tendon and Dirk spraining his knee in the same month. Take away Dirk and a role player, and this team looked straight up bad. Nothing for the Nationals or the Mavericks would really matter until the postseason, however, where they would bless the world with their improbable runs. In their respective first rounds, the Nats and Mavs would put away their fellow mid-tier opponents in a not-so-easy fashion. The Nats squeaked by the Brewers in a 4-3 nail-biter in their wildcard game, and the Brewers were without their best player in Christian Yelich, who was out with a kneecap injury. The Mavs would beat the Blazers in a 6-game series, but after dropping 2 straight games in Portland, they would have to crawl out of a 2-2 series against the 6th seed team. Neither of these performances seemed too convincing, and nobody's looking at the Mavs or Nats as serious contenders at this point, but everything would change when these 2 underdogs would go to LA. The Nats would shock the Dodgers 3-2, and yet another choke job by LA. All of a sudden, this Nats team looked scary. Their pitching was full of veterans and young talent, and more importantly than that, this team showed extreme resilience both times the Dodgers won a game.
In front here in the 10th inning in Game 5. Swinging a fly ball, center field deep. Bellinger going back to the warning track, to the wall. It's a grand slam. Howie Kendrick has done it. They're going crazy in the Nationals dugout. Howie Kendrick with a grand slam here in the 10th inning of Game 5.
The Mavericks would face off against the Lakers, who were fresh off 2 straight championships. Many thought the LeBron-Kobe finals was finally going to come. But instead, the Mavericks not only beat the Lakers, but sweep them in an embarrassing fashion. Just like when the Dodgers lost to the Nats, all of a sudden, this Mavericks team looked very intimidating. Both of these Cinderella teams would make quick work of their next opponents. The Mavericks would beat a young Thunder team 4-1, and the Nats would get their sweep against the Cardinals. Still, people had their doubts about these two teams. The Mavericks were up against an absolute super team in the Big Three Heat, and the Astros were also loaded, with half their players wearing buzzers and enough trash cans to bang on until the 2050 season. But the magic just wouldn't stop. As we all know, the Nationals would shock the Astros in Game 7 with Scherzer's 5th win that postseason, and LeBron would endure the most damning piece of evidence that MJ fans have against him. Despite the Nats being in 5 elimination games in which they were down a run, they come back every time, doing it all with longtime Washington guys like Ryan Zimmerman and Steven Strasburg. They end up being the only ball club to beat 2 100-win teams in the same playoffs. And despite only having one creaky old all-star, the Mavericks would beat Kobe and LeBron, with Kobe being on a team that had won multiple championships, and LeBron being on one of the best super teams ever assembled. Both of these teams had their doubts, were never considered title favorites, and ran the table. The sports world needs stories like this so that no fan loses hope that their team could be the next Cinderella story. And I have to say, even with these 2 miraculous runs, the NBA and MLB postseasons still feel a little predictable at times. But if you look at it, the monotony makes these flashes of spontaneity even more special.